Hi everybody, thanks for tuning again to check out our podcast. It's a good day today. I've got a good friend of mine in. I'm not sure if it's a good thing or a bad thing that he's a good friend of mine, but we'll find out soon. But again, I apologise if any language or anything upsets people. That's not our intention. But I'd like to introduce a good friend of mine, Anth. He is an Armed Forces veteran, and he is also the fundraiser at a place that's very, very close to my heart, St Benedict's Hospice. So thanks for coming along, Anth.
No worries, pleasure to be here.
So basically this is just a very loose conversation, just about two people getting together, having a catch up. Yeah. So tell us a bit about you. What have you been up to?
Grand. Well, do you want to talk about recent times or do you want to talk about life story times?
Life stories, recent times, whatever floats your boat. I'll get the Navy ones in there straight away.
That's upsetting. Obviously you know a little bit about me, but obviously for the listeners, Mark, just to give you a bit of background on me. So my name's Anth McDermott. I head up the corporate relationships, challenge events and the digital marketing at St Benedict's Hospice. Mm-hmm. Which is a hospice very close to your heart, my heart, and so many people across the city. And I've been here for about 2 years now. Prior to coming to the hospice, my career path has been fairly varied. Left school at 16, and when I became a big boy and joined the British Army, which is similar to you with the Navy, I guess.
Yes,
isn't it?
Yeah. 17 I was when I went away.
Just a lad, eh?
Yeah, I was like that as well, with ginger afro. Looked a right tip.
I joined the army at 16, and do you know what? We were talking about this the other day, but I think for anyone who's got the opportunity to join the forces at a young age, it's a massive part of my life, and it's been a really positive influence on my life. I mean, I don't know if you found that at all. Or? Yeah,
hugely so. It was proper James Bond stuff, the adventure.
Well, no, it is, isn't it? I remember seeing the advert as a nipper, as I'm sure we all did, and what was he called? The guy with the skis. Anyway, the guy
G.I. Joe.
There was an advert. There was a forces advert, and there was a guy on a pair of skis going down a hill having the time of his life. And I thought, I want a slice of that. That looks fantastic, the army was a big part of my life, and something that really, really shaped me, really. So I joined the army at 16. I went to the Army Foundation College in Harrogate.
Wow.
So I was a boy leader. That's what junior leader.
Yeah.
I left Harrogate after a year of being there and went on to join the Royal Regiment Fusiliers. Spent a couple of years there before I went across to join the Medical Corps. Did a couple of years there. Came out the army, and then so began my Civvy Street adventure.
Wow, the biggest adventure of the lot, I would imagine.
Really is. It really is.
Certainly the biggest challenge.
Yeah, which is strange, actually, isn't it? Because I think lots of people think the armed forces is a challenge, and it is. But I think going from the armed forces to the real world is the biggest challenge anybody can face, in truth. And I think it's a little bit easier now. But I think when me and you got out the forces, it was a different kettle of fish.
It was terrifying. I never experienced anything as scary. But it's interesting when you see, the adverts and the recruitment videos. And as soon as you said that, I think back, is it Stephen Graham, the actor that does all the ones at the minute?
Great actor, by the way.
Yeah, great actor. But the principles around them videos, that line when he says, "Find where you belong."
Yeah.
It taps into the real kind of, find where I belong, because that's what everybody's searching for.
Of course it is.
So the psychological impact that these recruitment videos have are massive.
I agree.
Frustrating, and it pisses me off because it can be quite misleading.
I agree, yeah.
Because, you might be able to say as well that the forces isn't all just an adventure.
Well, of course not. And it's bloody hard, and it's a lot of tears and a lot of blood and sweat and God knows whatever else.
Yeah.
Let's not, make any bones about it. And yes, there is lots of adventure, but I think the hard times probably outweighs that. I remember being a 17-year-old kid, and I'd just gone to Germany, right? My first posting, I went to a place called Celle, Trenchard Barracks in Germany. 17-year-old, I had a girlfriend at that time. And I remember getting to Germany, and I remember sitting on the phone crying my eyes out every single night because I was missing home, missing my mum, missing my dad, missing my girlfriend. It was horrendous, and there wasn't any support or anything. You were just stuck in a camp in Germany. Don't get me wrong, the lads were great, Well, I say great. They weren't going to give me any counselling.
Yeah.
They'd take me out and get me pissed every night, you
Yeah.
know. But that's
That was the help back there,
well,
wasn't
that's
it?
it, yeah. And that's kind of what you became accustomed to. But no, there was a lot of nights like that where it was sad and it was lonely.
Yeah.
It was tough.
Uh-huh. And I often think so. I mean, on board a ship, I mean, down our mess deck, we had 54 men crammed down a tiny area. And you're absolutely right. You weren't allowed to really show emotion.
No.
So you got your kind of your bunk, your pit, and it was tiny. But that's the only place you really had.
Yeah.
And you had a curtain that you pulled alongside, and that's the only place. You know, and when you go away for sort of 8 months at a time, that's the only place you were able to kind of have any emotion.
Yeah.
And I still remember, and people might say, oh, they didn't know that, but I heard it. People used to lie in bed on a night and cry.
Oh, God, aye.
Yeah, you're going away for 8 months at a time, away from families, kids.
Oh, I did it, mate. I did it.
Aye.
And honestly, that first weekend I joined battalion, I always remember that first weekend in particular. In fact, it was a Thursday night. I arrived in Germany. I was 17-year-old, and we were lucky enough, I guess, to have single man rooms. Well, there were double rooms, but you had a big wall down the middle, so you had a single room to yourself. My roommate though wasn't there, so I was 17-year-old, rocked up in battalion, and had a room to myself. And I was shitting myself, right? Because these are the big boys now. This isn't, you know, these isn't the lads I grew up with in training. They just come back from Iraq, I think 18 months prior. These were the big boys, you know. And I remember from the Thursday to the Saturday afternoon, I didn't move out that bed.
Right.
I knew I had to report Monday morning,
Yeah.
but I was so terrified because I stayed in my room and I cried myself to sleep.
Yeah.
Didn't eat anything. I had a sandwich that I brought with us, and that was about it.
Yeah.
That's terrifying, isn't it?
It is, but it's so real. So real.
And it is, and people forget that. And don't get me wrong, look, I had a great time in the army, and, you know, you do make friends and all the rest of it. But those initial, I guess, transformational processes of getting into the services and things were tough, really tough.
And I really do feel that the MOD needs to really look at the kind of promotional videos. I mean, the Royal Navy one, was it? Born in Carlisle, made in the Royal Navy. I mean, fuck off, man. You're made wherever you are, trying to tap into people's kind of psychological kind of need for growth, in my opinion, is wrong. It's misleading.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
So I've lost all potential contracts I'm going to get from the MOD now. but no, but about anything difficult happen. You know, and any challenges that you face while serving abroad and whatnot?
For the forces, yeah. I mean, I guess serving in operations is always difficult. You know, I was a medic towards my latter days, and, you know, I saw active service in Afghanistan. And for anybody who looks at these promotional videos and sees all the fun and games and men running around with helmets on, shooting people and things, I can tell you now, it's nothing like what you see on the television.
Absolutely, yeah.
And, you know, in Afghanistan, the enemy wasn't an enemy like you see in the movies.
Yeah.
It wasn't a case of we got up and pointed at them and they pointed at us and we shot each other. No.
Yeah.
You'd be going out your business and boom.
Wow.
There was no enemy to be seen, you know, and that was day in, day out. So I guess that was probably the biggest challenge was getting your head around that you were in a foreign land, doing the job for something you didn't really understand.
Yeah.
And it wasn't what you expected it to be.
Yeah.
You know.
For something you didn't understand. That's so pertinent, that is.
That's crackers, isn't it?
Yeah, we're all there. And just as you said, that had kind of, obviously with the Holocaust, you know, being so kind of relevant in the news at the minute.
Of course.
You know, World War II was such, you know, there's no words can actually really justify it or anything like that. But there was basically two bunch of people coming together and say, well, what the frig is it for?
Yeah.
What the hell are we doing? What's going on? And it's still relevant in today's...
I think it's more relevant today, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think it's more. I think I'm quite an intelligent person. People might disagree, but I do. I think I'm a semi-intelligent person, and I think, you know, even I didn't really understand the whole situation in fairness, and I still don't really.
Yeah.
You know, I understand. I think the line we were all fed was you were there to stop people coming across here and killing us in our sleep, so to speak. And actually, that's a load of bullshit, isn't it? Let's be honest. What's the reason we were there?
Yeah.
I can't really tell you. But yeah, that was the biggest challenge, I guess, across the armed forces, was going out on operations in a place like Afghanistan with an enemy who doesn't give a monkey's chuff who you are and doesn't care what they do to you or how they do it to you. And that's really hard to get your head around, I guess.
Yeah. And I would imagine, especially in kind of hindsight, you know, when we kind of sit down years later And we think, well, fucking hell, I put myself in a dodgy situation there.
Aye.
Things could have been very, very different.
Yeah, definitely.
So that the power of hindsight's terrifying as well.
Of course, it is. It really is.
Yeah.
It really is.
But at the minute, I've really got the whole recruitment thing going on in my head, because that's, I mean, there's a big push within government at the minute trying to get people to, how do we help veterans? People are coming out from the forces and they're going to Civvy Street. How do we help them? And it's simple. The help starts at the recruitment.
Yeah, I agree.
It doesn't start, well, you've got 1 year left of service to do.
No.
Right, we're going to give you a bit of support now. It starts at recruitment. It starts when people are actually thinking about joining the forces. I mean, you go down the Sun and Air show. Last year, it really frustrated us because there was a big kind of military presence.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got kids, young kids, 8, 9 year old or whatever, lying on the turf with a great big bloody gun.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the fuck is that teaching us? It's wrong. It kind of romanticises and glorifies a system that is fundamentally wrong.
But what's interesting though is because it does romanticise it, but actually, bizarrely, despite the fact that I know that perhaps what I was doing was dangerous and all the rest of it, as an ex-soldier, and I don't know if you get this, but I've still got the hunger to bet myself back in those situations.
Oh, God, yeah.
What does that tell you about us? We've been programmed, haven't we?
Yeah.
We're programmed.
Yeah.
Do you know if someone says to me, and this is crackers really, despite all the crap that I've seen, I just think, and you've seen, and lots of other people have seen, if somebody said to me tomorrow, there's an opportunity to go in operations, I'd bite your hand off for it.
Absolutely.
Is that because of the dullness of real life? Probably, but I'm just programmed to be there.
Yeah. You're conditioned.
It's ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about the other day, and it's the whole idea of like when something happens, it kind of sparks something off within you.
Oh God, yeah.
And it's a big element of who we are.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a day out for families the other Sunday, and it was basically just families getting together, going in the outdoors and just trying to connect. But I had me kind of me walking shoes on, me walking trousers, I had me backpack on, and I was like, fuck yeah, here we go. And I was just trekking through all the mud, all the shite, all the rivers. I was like, whoa. I was in that role.
Yeah.
It sparked that part of us.
Yeah, I get that as
and
well.
you can't get rid of it.
I can't go for a walk with my missus without thinking that I'm yomping across country somewhere. It's just bizarre.
Yeah.
And I don't think you'll ever shake that.
No.
No.
And as well, because me and Roll on board a ship was to hunt for submarines.
Okay.
So I was on a surface ship and we had to hunt, detect and destroy enemy submarines.
Which is difficult when you're in the River Way trying to do the same.
Exactly. But that whole idea, and it was the pressure of it all, and it was so intense.
Yeah.
And if you kind of say to civilians now that to try and explain the intensity level, they'll just not understand it.
No, they won't, and I think it's the physical side of it, which also plays a bit in that as well. Because I think, people think soldiers are these big buff people and running around. And actually, you look at the majority of frontline troops now, not the majority, but quite a big portion of females actually.
Yeah.
And if you look at the physical build of those people, and they've still got to carry the same amount of kit, same of this, same that, so all that mental stuff they've got to block off to try and get the physical stuff out.
Yeah.
And I always find that really quite interesting because they can't concentrate on blowing out their backside because actually they need to get on with the job at hand. And I find that quite difficult, So, I find
that. And it's as well, that kind of special forces and all that. And when you think of them, and I remember back in the day thinking, well, you had to be really super fit and all that. And then I was lucky enough to kind of meet a few special forces and all that.
They never look like that.
And I was like, fuck it. We actually did some exercise where they actually came down the mess deck, the SBS. Right. And that they came down and was just a bog standard bloke. But then you look on the programmes now on the telly, the SCS Who Dares Wins. Yeah. I love that show and I love that Anth and all that.
It's a bit Hollywood though, isn't it?
Yeah, the proper ripped, and they are sexy as fuck, aren't they?
Yeah.
They even get me thinking twice, But it's kind of creating a very different picture. But I really do like it how they really get across you've got to be really strong in the head.
Yeah.
That being strong in the head is far more important than being strong physically.
Oh, I completely agree. Something I want to pick up on actually is what you said earlier about talking about how it starts when you're in the forces before you leave, about getting people ready to go home. I always remember when we got back from Afghanistan and we talked about this briefly the other day, the transition that we went through. So you imagine, we had 7 months on ops in the desert. It was 2009, and it was the worst ever it was the most amount of casualties ever since World War II. So you can imagine we got pretty hammered. Like, to be fair, we had a tough tour, really tough tour. So the end of our tour, well, what do you think? So when you read the telly and you hear about all these soldiers and you hear about all this support, how do you think we came home? What do you think the process would? What do you think the public's perception of the process would be?
The public's perception, I don't even think the public would have had even the idea to think about what the process would be.
Well, at the time, I was in the reserves. I was a TA soldier at the time. And my process of coming back from Afghanistan was 1 week I was in Camp Bastion, out on patrol, doing whatever. Within 7 days, I was back in Bastion. I flew to Cyprus for what they call decompression. Now, what they did, they fly you from Afghanistan to Cyprus. They fly you in. They give you a pair of shorts and a T-shirt, put you on a beach for 24 hours, give you 2 cans of lager, right? Give you, this is God's honest truth, they give you a flip chart presentation telling you, in 2 weeks' time, you may feel depressed. In 6 weeks, I swear to you. From there, we flew to Germany. We spent 10 days in Germany, and I was flown back to Civvy Street. So 15 days between leaving Afghanistan and being kicked out into the real world. Mental.
It's just so
and
wrong.
We wonder why troops have problems.
Yeah. and it's just frustrating because you're absolutely right. The public don't see this.
No, they don't.
They don't understand this. And then, the veterans themselves, they withhold a lot of it.
Yeah, of course they do.
It's kind of, it's not an issue, man. It's not a problem. It's not a problem. It's okay.
I always remember being on that beach in Cyprus. I can't remember the name of the camp. Camp Bloodhound, that's the name of the camp. And, it was great. They had every water sport you ever imagine. It was basically like an all-inclusive holiday without the beer, during the day at least anyway. And I always remember looking around that beach and thinking, fucking hell, like, it was only a couple of weeks ago, all of us were out there literally picking pieces of people up, literally.
Yeah.
This was a medical unit. And now we're here, splashing around in the sun as if nothing's happened. Yeah. We're then given 2 cans of lager on the night.
Yeah. the good forces mentality, that,
exactly. And then, packed off home the next day. I mean, it's just ridiculous when I think about it now. Crackers.
So how long did it actually take you to kind of really try and deal with all that?
I don't think I've ever dealt with it, in truth. I don't think I've ever really given it a thought. I think Remembrance Day is my day to stand and get pretty pissed, to be fair, and have a drink with the boys and shed a tear. I always shed a tear on Remembrance Day, but I think other than that, it's a squaddy mentality, isn't it? It goes to the back of your mind and you try and, I guess, block it out, really.
Yeah. Because when maybe we're not ready to deal with it, maybe it's the correct environment's not ready for us. But I mean, in Sunderland alone, there's over 26,000 veterans.
Yeah.
And I would imagine the vast majority are seeing very similar things to you.
Exactly, yeah.
But we just, there's no way of dealing with it.
But I think one of the other problems that I always find as well is this PTSD thing as well. I'll call it a PTSD thing, and I'll come on to that in a second why. But it's really, it's exaggerated lots of the times. And I think that makes it difficult for lots of people because all of a sudden everybody's got PTSD just because you've been in the forces. Yeah. Well, actually, that's not strictly true. Yeah. I mean, I think I'm all right. Perhaps I have got PTSD. But it's massively exaggerated. And the reason I call it a PTSD thing is I just think people look for a hook all the time. Yeah. Oh, but he was in the army, so that's why he's a bit of a shit. Well, hang on a minute. That's not really true. He's probably a bit of a shit because he's a bit of a shit. It could be because he's got problems because of the forces, but it's not always the case.
And then that you're absolutely right. And it's something I look a lot at, PTSD. Straight away, if you remember the public, you're in the forces, you must have PTSD. And I'm like, well, and all the research shows that the veterans are no more likely than anybody else to suffer from PTSD. Exactly. Because you can go for a drive and witness a car crash, you can have PTSD. And also, just because you've witnessed a trauma or experienced a trauma does not mean that you're going to have PTSD.
People deal with things in different ways at the end of the day.
Exactly. And you're absolutely right. It really bugs us. Because, I mean, I did all my sort of dissertation at university on the difficulties that veterans face in transitioning to civilian life. And the underlying issue is, it is the case of identity. It's like, who the fuck are we?
I'd agree.
When you go through the age of sort of 17 through to 21, they're a fundamental age bracket of when you kind of, any individual starts moving away from their significant caregiver or the parent. They've got to form their own identity. Now, when you join the military, that process gets stopped. You are, therefore, Delta 236233 Bravo. That's your military identity. And then when you leave the forces, it's like, well, how the fuck am I meant to live now? So
right.
often people, you'll hear veterans say, well, actually Afghanistan to me is safer than Aldi.
Yeah.
And it is. I mean, Aldi's fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're still at the end of that conveyor belt and they're chucking that bloody stuff at you. But that's chaos.
I think you're right, and I think the armed forces for me is a lot more safe brackets than real life. And the reason I say that is because there's more structure. You know where you stand. There's no bullshit. You know, I know in the armed forces. Let's talk about the ranking system, for example. If a member of the hierarchy tells me to do something, I'll do it. And if I, as somebody with rank, tells somebody below me to do something, they'll do it. There's not a problem. In the real world,
it doesn't work like that, does it?
No, and I think that's really quite difficult for someone in the armed forces to get their head around.
Yeah.
But it's all of these things. It's things like, you know, we're in the real world, brackets, you know, the office bitchiness, you know, people gossiping all the time. You don't really get that in the armed forces because if there's an issue, it's sorted out.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not talking about going back to the Stone Age and beating each other with clubs in the car. But it's addressed straight away, and there isn't really that many issues.
Yeah.
Of course, there is some. So yeah, I think there's that I find really difficult to transition to, is the nonsense of Civvy Street, I guess.
Yeah. Not nonsense, and for me as well, chaos.
Yeah, this chaos.
It's like I take my boy to school in the morning, and I see all the other families and all that. The kind of the talk and they're having banter and they're laughing, and to me, there's too many unknown variables going on.
Yeah.
So it's chaos. So I'm dropping my son off at school, and I'm very consciously aware of the process that I'm going through, and I find it quite upsetting because I would love to go and speak to people.
Yeah.
I'd love to say, hey, Monday morning, how's your weekend been? But it's really difficult for me because it's chaos.
Well, I think anyone who's been in the armed forces, even for just a year or two, to be honest, anyone who's been through that programming, the basic training element, I would say needs that organisation.
Yeah.
They need that, the locker layout system, so to speak. And I guess, I bet you 90% of people who's been in the armed forces will still have a tidy wardrobe at home. They really will. The dishes will be in a certain way because that's how we're programmed. And I think that's a real issue. And you talk about PTSD, lots of people talk about PTSD being a big thing with members of the armed forces community. I think it's what you said, and I think it's more about the fact that we're pre-programmed.
Yeah.
And that's really difficult to get away from. And that's why soldiers, in my experience, tend to be a little bit, not right, mixed up, shall we say.
Yeah.
I do.
And yeah, sure. And I mean, of course, that it's important to say as well that, veterans aren't experiencing PTSD.
Of course.
But the priority should be to actually look at their sense of identity. As soon as they've got a grasp of who they are as an individual in this civilian world, then you've got the foundation. And that's when you can start looking at kind of addressing the PTSD.
I agree.
And I am going to give my work a quick plug because the packages I'm trying to put together for veterans, it's exactly what you see, very, very structured. Because veterans, I believe, really need the structure because that's the environment they come from. A kind of a counselling service where a veteran can drop in my opinion, yes, there's support networks which are brilliant, but really in-depth psychotherapy, a drop in will not be. It won't suffice.
No, I agree.
But it's a fascinating, deep topic that we could talk so much about. Much about.
And I think you're right. I'm not saying that PTSD isn't real because it is very real for many, many people. But I just think, as we do with most things across this country, we blow things out of proportion and we use it as a hook rather than actually getting to the root of the problem.
Yeah, and of course the reports are showing now as well that one of the biggest challenges that the government fears and organisations like mine is the public's misconception of veterans. And that can really hinder people, that really hinder veterans. It's like, oh, well, we're going to single you out. Well, don't single me out. I'm a human being. I'm going to try and recognise my challenges and difficulties, but don't single me out as a kind of, oh, you've got PTSD, we're going to have to treat you carefully. It's
bizarre, isn't it? I remember, I was going to say this earlier, I remember, it wasn't that long ago, I remember meeting a client with my role at the moment at the hospice, and I remember going to see a corporate client. We just had a bit of a chat, and we were talking about backgrounds, and I said, I was in the army for a little while, blah, 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 blah. And as soon as I said that I was in Afghanistan, oh, are you all right?
Yeah.
What do you mean, am I all right? Yeah, I'm all right. Like, what do you think I'm going to do? You're going to clip your stapler and I'm going to jump on the floor screaming. I'm all right.
You're absolutely right.
Don't put us in a box.
Yeah.
You know, it's crackers.
And that's a difficulty with society. Is society kind of gets in a way these days where it needs people in boxes.
Yeah, it does.
You know, we need a kind of, oh, well, you fit that kind of category. You fit that. No, I'm a fucking human being.
Yeah. And I think that goes through everything, and not just the armed forces. You know, obviously through my career after the army, I was in sales for a while, and and I ended up at St Benedict's Hospice. Looked after my father-in-law 2.5 years ago. Obviously, I know you lost your father there as well. So we both got a close relation with the hospice, and we talk about misconceptions. My Christ, this is what I do every single day: is fight the myths of the hospice, because people in all walks of life make up their mind about something, and then for some reason, because everyone's so busy with social media and the way the world is these days, they don't listen to anything else. And you're like, hang on a minute, that's not true. Yeah. Let's get some facts in here. And I think it's a real issue, actually.
Yeah. In every walk. But no, it's fantastic that you bring St Benedict's up. That's one of the reasons why I really want to get you on here as well, because St Benedict's it's right there. And I feel emotional just thinking of my journey being there, because I mean, my old man took ill with a brain tumour, and he did well. He got longer than the experts expected, and then he took ill really suddenly, and then he ended up in Sunderland Hospital, and I'm going to see it, and I'll probably just get people complaining at this, but Sunderland Hospital was an absolute pile of shite. It was an absolute pile of shite. We went in and we spoke to nurses. He's not with it. He can't do anything for himself. So you have to give him his tablets. And like, oh yeah, no problem, we'll give him his tablets. And he was on really high dose medication to help with the pain. And of course, then we went in one day and his tablet tub was empty. Oh, they've given him his tablets. Fantastic, well done. But then I looked down the floor, his tablets were all over the floor. And the way we confronted the nurses and the staff time and time again, but that's by and by. But then after that, we managed to get him into St Benedict's Hospice, and
it's a game changer, isn't it?
It was total game changer. And what St Benedict's Hospice did, not just for my dad, but for me and my whole family, I will never ever be able to repay them.
Yeah,
it was just phenomenal. We were human beings, and it was the worst experience of my life, but there was people there to guide us through it.
Yeah.
And that was amazing.
No, and I'd say similar, to be honest. I know I work there now, and I think people think, oh, it's just because he works there, but actually I didn't always work there, and prior to working there we had similar experience to you. You know, my father-in-law Billy was at the hospital, and it wasn't great. Well, you know, I'm not going to lie either, and dance around the subject. It wasn't great. So eventually he got moved to the hospice, and he never really wanted to go to the hospice at all because he was terrified, because there's this real misconception and myth that people go to the hospice and that's it.
Yeah.
Right? They go to the hospice and it's where I go to die, which is an absolute load of nonsense. Yeah. The hospice is there for many, many reasons, but it's certainly not just there for people to come and die.
Yeah.
So Billy came into the hospice, and with Billy they sorted his medication out. He was in the hospice for a short period of time, and he went home.
Yeah.
You know, he went home, you know.
Brilliant.
But those couple of days in the hospice where he had 24-hour care, the nurses were fantastic. He had people who basically it was like a 5-star hotel for him, you know, and you know what the services like that. The staff there are amazing. And, you know, I'm honoured to have those colleagues now. But he got home. He ended up using the daycare services, which was a huge, relief for him and the family, because he got to go in and be poorly, yes, but he got to go in and talk to other patients in a similar situation, and it gave a bit of respite to the family. And I think that's what people don't get, is actually St Benedict's, there's so much more than just look after these poorly people, but actually the families, and you'll have seen that yourself. Yeah. Eventually Billy did go back into the hospice, and, you know, unfortunately, you know, he sadly passed away there, but I will never, ever, ever be able to repay, you know, St Benedict's Hospice. And that's why I work there now, and I try and raise as much money to ensure that the services keep going, because if we don't, then we're all buggered, to be fair.
And it still baffles us why that service is not really kind of, well, everything comes from the government, because it's such a vital part of kind of society, a vital part of everybody's life.
Yeah. And the sad thing is, we're not the only hospice. There's so many hospices. Last year they lost 3 hospices. We've never lost a hospice. 3 of them because couldn't afford to run anymore and closed down. We're very lucky at St Benedict's. We have a high percentage of income comes from an NHS.
Yeah.
However, Brexit was passed yesterday. We just don't know what's coming. It's the God's honest truth. Yeah. And it's that uncertainty that's always going to be in the back of your mind and a worry.
Yeah, and of course, once you start worrying about funding, it's all the extra things that makes St Benedict so amazing. It's like in my dad's room, they had like a bed settee. So it's like on my dad's final night, my mum was actually planning to stay there. Yeah. So it's like you can still be together.
Yeah, and it's the little things that people don't get. For example, I'll give you a couple of anecdotes. We had a lady who, through her treatment for cancer, lost all of her hair. So we paid for a tattooist to come in and tat her eyebrows on, make her feel human. Obviously,
human.
You're a mental health expert, and it's all about making people feel human. I'm not saying the hospital can't do that. Yeah. We can do it so much easier because we have the facilities to do that. There was a couple of years ago that the hospice the charity arranged for a reindeer to come and see a gentleman just before Christmas in his room. I mean, the guy said, all I want to do is have one more Christmas with my family. Yeah. So the hospice arranged for Father Christmas to go down and see him, and it was the real one. A reindeer to go to his room and all sorts. And these things are amazing. Yeah. And what a difference that makes to him and his family. His family don't have this memory of their dad on a ward with 8 other people dying. Yeah. They have this memory with him smiling with a reindeer, and that's what it's all about, and it's hugely important that we keep these things going. It's hugely important.
Absolutely. I mean, and another key element of it all for us was the fact that we would take my boy, and he was only 3 back then, and of course out the back he's got that amazing pond, where all the ducks, and when we take him there, we take him out to see the ducks and all that, and he was okay. It's peaceful, and like just outside his room, there's kind of a garden area. It's
beautiful.
So I could take Archie and we all sat out there, and it's them touches. Yeah. And it was so important. And I'm very well fighting back the emotion thinking about it. But the fact that my dad was going through his final moments, and every now and then he would open his eyes, and he would see all members of his family. Yeah. That is, when you come to your end, and you're going to go, that's bang on, and that's thanks to St Benedict.
No, it is, and we had a similar experience. The fact that my wife could go in any time she wanted. The fact that my mother-in-law was there and able to stay the night, as she said. Yeah. 24 hours. We would, we have spare rooms and things. We can make beds up for people if it needs to be. We're almost a 5-star hotel in lots of ways. And we try to provide that. It's those things, and you're right, because it's those memories and those last moments, of as you say, the whole family being around, or those extra little pieces that we just try and do for people. So it's an amazing place, and I'm honoured to work there.
And I'm honoured as well to be kind of thought about with you. We're hopefully, anything I can do in the future, you literally just have to pick up the phone. And I'll move heaven and earth to do whatever I can.
And do you know what? It's funny. It's not funny, I guess, but I guess people who've never dealt with hospice don't understand this. Yeah. There's a real misconception that a hospice is where people come to die, where there's a load of nuns walking around, whispering in dark corridors, and people on hospital beds. What a load of bollocks. It's a lovely place, right? And anyone who's ever been touched by the hospice, generally 99% of them will come back, unless it's too difficult for them, which is fine. And we're quite lucky, in that respect. The difficulty we've got is we've only got 14 beds on the inpatient unit. 14 beds to cover all of Sunderland. And a bit of South Shields these days and down towards Peterlee. Yeah. That's a big old area with 14 beds. And actually, I think it's a disgrace, as you were saying earlier, that the government don't do more for it. No. Somebody once told me quite an interesting statement. If you went to the maternity ward, right, and you were about to give birth, and he said, right, before you give birth, what I want you to do is I want you to go and run a marathon. I want you to jump out of a plane, and I want that business to give you £1,000, right? You'd go, piss off, not a chance, not a chance. Yeah. However, at the end of life, we do expect that to a degree, and that's not right, is it?
You're absolutely right. What a real unique way of looking at it. Really amazing. But another key area that really struck us with the hospice was the dignity. And it was kind of, and you're absolutely right, that it wasn't depressing. It wasn't kind of miserable. It was fresh. The nurses used to walk up and down the streets, the corridors, whistling.
Yeah.
Yeah, they used to pop their head in and say, "Oh, how is everybody?"
Oh, it's a laugh. Bizarrely, you know, people find that really odd when I say that, but it's a right laugh.
Yeah.
People are happy. It's a happy place. Because, you know, going back to what you do, obviously, with mental health, you know, we have to make it a happy place. Look, don't get me wrong, we don't mess around, and we talk openly to our patients. We talk about dying, and we have a big campaign, Dying Matters, every year. We don't hide away from the fact that, yes, Mr. whatever or Mrs. whatever, you are going to die. You know, we don't hide away from that. But it's about making those moments and making people, you know, have a bit of positivity in the darkest days, I guess.
And that's really kind of fundamental to we practice psychotherapy as well. It's kind of like, well, I'm quite existential with my kind of ideas of counselling and the idea of death anxiety, that we all have it. You know, we're all kind of terrified at times of dying, but that's okay. We are going to die, and what we can do is, if we really address it, and if we kind of take a moment and actually realise that right here, right now, life's actually good, life's actually okay. And honestly, St. Benedict's did that, and I love the way as well, whenever unfortunately anybody did pass, they would come round, they would close all the doors.
Yeah, and let you have as long as you want with the loved one.
Yeah, and it was amazing. But I really want to thank you for sharing all that. That got me quite emotional, you bastard.
Here to help me, I'm here to help.
But how about you? What else is your life like? What do you like doing? And
of course, I'm a Sunderland lad, and with what comes with that, with the territory, is sadly I'm a Sunderland supporter. And do you know what? I love Sunderland Football Club. You're a big Sunderland fan yourself, obviously. Being season ticket holder, I go home and away. You know, for years and years and years. But you know, it has a real impact on the city, how rubbish we are at the moment, in fairness. And I think people from outside the area don't get that. But this city has a lot of challenges, and I think it thrives, or it fails, on the football club. I really believe that. And I really think that's had a real effect on kind of the economy around here at the moment, too. It certainly had an effect on my mental health, I can tell you.
It's such a hard challenge. And I often say to people, and it's say, because I went down to see the Charlton playoff final, and I took the missus down, and we're leaving, and it all went horribly wrong. And the missus was kind of expecting me to be grumpy or kind of ratty, and I was just walking out the stage, and I was smiling. And she was like, "Well, why aren't you sad?" I'm like, "Well, as a Sunderland fan, you're used to it. You know, they'll always tempt you with a little bit of kind of success and all that, and then whip it away from you. But also, I said, look around you. I says, you're surrounded by people from your town in another town. I says, we are a community.
Do you know what I call it? I call it the island of Sunderland, right? And I call it the island of Sunderland because people from Sunderland don't go out to Sunderland, and people don't come on the island of Sunderland. But that island, when it travels, is a frightening. Let's be honest. You know,
it's a force to be reckoned with.
Trafalgar Square, the scenes down there. You know, people will have those memories forever. You know, and in the end, it was a pretty shitty experience. But those memories of people jumping in the fountains and things, amazing, and it really makes you proud, doesn't it?
It does it, and still, I still go to the matches. I'll always have my season ticket, and it'll simply be because that was my dad's seat. So I took over his seat. There's the same people around us, but it's the idea of, like, no matter what league we're in, it's still kind of people.
It's tribe mentality, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely right. And I always say as well, I'd rather do that than get into mother-in-law's for bloody Saturday afternoon. Anything's better than that.
Do you know what stuck with me? I always remember when I was a kid and I went to see Sunderland play Man City, and we got relegated. I can't remember. I must have been 11, 12, maybe younger. And it was at Main Road, and we got battered. Main Road was getting closed down. Niall Quinn scored. I think we got beat 4-0. And I always remember there was about 5,500 Sunderland fans. There might have been more, actually, I can't remember. I know there was a massive lot of Sunderland fans went down to watch us get relegated. And they were singing their hearts out. Man City fans were singing, "You're shit and you know you are." And we were singing, "We're shit and we know we are." And I always remember at that moment just thinking, do you know what? We are a bit shit, really. But we're all right with that, actually. And as long as we've got everybody around us and we're all laughing about it, it's all right. And I think that's so important in every aspect of life, actually. And Sunderland fans definitely have that. And do you know what? We live for the little moments.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got it.
I remember beating Rochdale 2-1 last season. George Honeyman scored in the 91st minute, and we celebrated like we just beat Germany 5-0 in the World Cup final. You know, but that's the life of a Sunderland
fantastic.
fan. It is.
No, but it's always great catching up with Anth, and like I said before the podcast, you know, if we had a couple of cameras when we met at the Palm the other day, that would have been a good podcast as well. That might actually be a good idea. I might get in touch with the Palm. Say, listen, can we set up some gear, get a couple of pints on the go, some tapas.
Definitely.
Bob's your uncle.
Definitely, mate.
No, but it's always a pleasure meeting up with you, and thank you for everything you do at St Benedict's.
Oh, it's the clinical teams there that need the thanks, not me. They're amazing.
You said the word there, team. The whole team effort at St Benedict's, absolutely amazing. And thank you for everything that you've done, the forces, and thank you for being a friend.
Thank you for having me.
I sound like the Bleak Golden Girls, don't I?
You do a little
Thank
bit.
you for being a friend. Anyway, enough of that. Thank you very much, Anth.
Cheers, buddy.